What's up, YouTube family? So today we're going to dive into Sam Sulek. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right, but that's the power of social media today, right? We can have someone who was, first off, he's like 20 years old, um, and overnight goes from nobody's ever heard of him to I think he's up to like almost 2 million followers. I saw a breakdown of his revenue, and it was like 2.1 million a year, or maybe it was 1.2. I'm dyslexic. I don't know. Over $1 million a year in YouTube revenues just from views, not including any contracts. I know he's signed with Hostile Supplements. He's got a big contract with them. No telling how many affiliate marketing and things like that he's involved in. TikTok, all that stuff. I mean, this dude's making tons of money, and he's probably the most controversial guy on the internet right now, especially in the bodybuilding scene. So I'm going to take a look at some clips from him. One of the biggest kind of targets of his is his diet and his form on exercise. So we'll look at that briefly. And then I'll just kind of dive into and wrap up my opinion on the whole situation, because everybody's got one. I really hate the whole gatekeeping scene in the bodybuilding industry. Let's just dive into some clips, and then I'll get into all that at the end. What we got first here looks like some diet clips. What's he eating here? He's got the famous milk jug out. Six-pack of Krispy Kreme donuts. Yeah, this is typical for what I've seen from him. He's actually pretty funny. I like Sam. We got 107 grams of fat, 243 carbs. Oh my goodness. Turn this down. Oh, went straight into a form clip. Look at this. What is going on? Heard of like picture perfect form. This is more like interpretive dance with the weights. What is he doing? He's real big on those forced partials, but there's tons of videos out there breaking down his form. I'm not going to get too into it, but that is not ideal. We got another video here.
No time for a monologue. Let's just hit this set and check the pump.
A little row. At least he's elevating himself, getting a full stretch. This isn't terrible. Well, there he goes into the partials. Listen to those grunts. Oh my. All right, so you get the picture here. His diet is, he eats whatever he wants. He believes in calories in, calories out, which is accurate. He's not wrong there. Look, Sam's a very young guy. He's got a fast metabolism. He's put on a lot of size in a short period of time. He trains really hard. I'm sure he's pretty active outside of the gym as well. He can probably get away with, for a while, eating whatever he wants as long as he's getting his calories in. He's getting sufficient protein, and he's getting enough fuel to fuel his workouts. And when I say fuel, I mean energy in terms of carbohydrates and fats. But A more ideal approach would be a easily digestible carb as your prime source of energy, with fats just to fill the macros. Most of his videos I've seen are ridiculous amounts of fat. It's not really an essential. So there's essential fatty acids that are healthy for you, but that's typically not the fats he's consuming. So dietary fat does you very little good in terms of fueling your gym performance. So a more optimal approach would be your typical chicken and rice, or doesn't even have to be rice, sweet potato, cream of rice, some fast digesting carb that he could digest well, eat several times throughout the day, probably time some of those around his workouts, your typical bodybuilding stuff. That's more optimal if your goal is strictly to add lean mass. Now, will his approach be sufficient in adding mass? Yes, it will. But like I said, it's more because he's so young, has a great metabolism, but long term, this is not the healthiest approach. You're going to have insulin sensitivity issues crop up. Um, Probably going to be some diminished effects on your cholesterol levels. It's definitely going to be some indication in his blood markers that this is not a healthy diet, and it could be more optimal. But can he build mass eating that? Yep. Would he be as dedicated as he is if he ate another way? Maybe not. Maybe this is a way for him to stay more consistent, something he really enjoys. I've got no issue with it. When it comes to his lifting form, is it optimal once again? No. Does it have to be optimal? Not really. Could you maybe squeeze out some more gains and definitely have it far less risk of injury and preserve the joints more long term? Like, he could use significantly less weight than he's using and tax the muscle just as much, which when you're talking about training over 2 decades, it's going to add up significantly. Definitely more optimal ways to do it, but the guy trains hard and he trains to failure. He extends the reps with partials. Definitely some evidence there that challenging the muscle in the fully lengthened range is probably the most beneficial to hypertrophy. Now, would I prefer seeing you take it through the full range of motion until you fail at the full range and maybe extending it with a couple of partials in the fully extended range? Yeah, that's probably more optimal. To me, it looks like a lot of his sets, he's hitting like a ton of weight with iffy form, using several muscles, not just the muscle he's trying to engage. And then it's like he hits 4 or 5 reps and then he's into these partials where he hits like 6 or 7 and they get shorter and shorter. I'd rather see a much more controlled set, takes it through the full range, and then maybe extend it 1 or 2 beyond that. But once again, he's training hard. He's training to failure. It must be a training style he likes. And if that means that he's going to enjoy himself and be more consistent in the gym and hit these numbers and hit failure every session, he can grow. And he has. I don't have an issue with him doing what he wants. I think the whole bodybuilding scene gets like upset when people get all this recognition. Like, it probably stemmed with all these new YouTube influencers or fitness influencers on TikTok that are like, 18 to 22 years old and have very little muscle mass. They're just aesthetic, and they're out there giving workout advice with millions of followers, making more money than these like legitimate bodybuilders with world-class physiques that have put in decades of work and have eaten the chicken and rice and have performed the reps with the optimal range. Like, they feel like they earned the right to look down on the guys that haven't put the work in that they have. And I get that, but it's not going to grow the sport. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what someone else is doing if they're happy. And props to them if they're monetizing it, right? Like, Sam's making $2 million a year at 20 years old. If I was giving Sam advice, I would say don't bodybuild. What does he have to gain from being a competitive bodybuilder? He's already gained more followers and a bigger platform without the sport than he probably could with the sport. I mean, he is up there with the likes of Chris Bumstead, the probably most followed guy in our sport, the most known. He's putting up similar numbers on social media platforms without stepping on stage. Bodybuilding is hard. He can't eat like he's eating and get in condition to compete. He would have to drastically change his diet, probably have to change his form to bring a competitive physique. And yeah, we think he's huge, but like, look at some of the videos with Hostile, him standing next to like Samson. Samson dwarfs him, makes him look like a child. So if he wanted to be at the top of the sport, the journey to get there is going to be so long, so hard, and so opposite of the what he's doing right now, where he seems to really be enjoying life. And quite frankly, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Like, you've got the money, you've got the attention, you've got the fame. Just continue doing what you're doing and loving life and bringing in this money the way you are now. You got nothing to gain from competing. If you get on stage and get smoked, which if you step on a bodybuilding stage at the national level, you are going to get smoked. No offense to you. These guys are just that good. It might damage your brand, you know? Like, hey, he's not as amazing as we thought. There's guys out there with significantly better physiques than him. Maybe his stuff doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. No. Just continue doing what you're doing, making $2 million a year, eating Krispy Kreme donuts and drinking gallons of milk. And don't worry about all the people making videos about how you're ruining your health. This isn't bodybuilding. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Just keep counting your money, Sam, and keep loving your life. And I'll keep watching because I'm enjoying your content.